So, hey
Woohoo!
guys, yeah, awesome. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. I've got Danielle Damianov. I didn't even ask you about that. Damiavo. All
Damiano.
right, Damiano. Okay, so yeah, there we go, pronouncing the V's, and I'm not supposed to pronounce them. Wow. Anyways, so we are here live. We're recording inside the Speaking Sessions Lounge group. So if you want to see these live, be able to ask questions of the guests, make sure that you tune in and get part of the Speaking Sessions Lounge group. But Dannielle is a best-selling author, real estate and mortgage mentor, speaker, real estate trainer, and course creator. Dannielle believes in living a life by design and shows you proven steps on how to build, grow, and scale your business while living a life by design and not by default. And she's definitely doing this. We first started connecting, and I happened to be in Italy, and she was on a cruise there going, getting ready to go to Italy and trying to figure out where she wanted to go. And I'm like trying to make suggestions to her, like I'm this world traveler, but really she's the world traveler here and working and making money all while traveling at the same time. But Dannielle, really excited to have you on here to talk today about how to capture your audience's attention and keep that attention. So go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit more.
Thank you. You basically said it all, and everyone screws up my last name, so that's okay. I actually used to be Smith and then got married, and now I'm Damianov.
Yeah, so you went from like a really easy name to super hard one. No, not
Exactly.
super hard, but definitely harder.
So real quick, born and raised in Massachusetts, moved to Florida in 2001, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Graduated from college in Boston, and on a whim, not knowing anybody, I moved down to Florida and got started right away in the mortgage industry. So that was all the way back in 2001. Within that time, I read a little book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that just changed my entire mentality on everything. And I thought to myself, I definitely want to be in real estate and real estate investing. I want to retire young, retire rich. That was another one of his books, through passive real estate investing. So got into real estate, opened up a real estate and mortgage company. The market then tanked in 2008. That was a fun time. And didn't know what to do, but once again, got my hustle on and went solely into real estate and really just started building my real estate business. I was in coaching, one-on-one coaching for a while, and decided to move to Miami once again on a whim. Only this time I was picking up my two young children that I had in 07 and 08 and my husband. We moved to Miami. I sold real estate over there, moved back to Southwest Florida, got back into mortgage, and here I am. So I've been in real estate and mortgage that entire time. When I moved back to Southwest Florida from Miami, I had to figure out, I was starting all over again. And I decided at that point to go full time back into mortgage, which was actually always my true love. And at that point, I said, okay, I'm starting over from scratch. I can now design my life around my business instead of my business around my life. And it became, or vice versa. And it just became a huge eye opener for me because I wanted to make sure that I could live or go or do whatever I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it, yet my business would still survive. So
Wow, that's a lot of changes there, and then getting through that 08, 09 storm for the craziness in real estate. That's very impressive to be able to do that. And it's interesting you went down to Miami. I wanted to ask about if you were trying to get there to work with Grant Cardone. I don't know if he was there at that time. I know he was in California and moved over to Miami maybe the last 5 years. So maybe you were there before him, but they just, you talking about real estate. I know he's all into real estate down there in Miami area, but interesting that you went from selling real estate as well back into the mortgage industry. But really cool that you went back to what your passion was and then building out your dream life, which I think a lot of that, and I would like you to answer this. Do you think that building out the passion, that dream life really goes around you building a passion in the business that you have or being passionate about the business that you create?
I think it's both. I think it's both. I think when you're, yeah, let's just say you're in sales. So real estate sales, mortgage sales, insurance sales, financial advisors, lawyers, doctors, everybody's pretty much in sales, because if you don't have any leads or clients, well, you have to sell them to go out and get them. So I really, and it's interesting that we're talking about this, because I was talking to a doctor about this the other day. First of all, it's figuring out what you want to do with your life, right? What's important to you. For me, travel is important to me. For other people, travel might not be important to them. And so as I built my business, I wanted to make sure that the activities that I did within my business would allow me to be able to still travel and build my business up that way. So for example, there's a lot of mortgage brokers right now that still see clients in the office. I think I've seen 1 or 2 clients a year, because I built my business to where everything is online. They feel so comfortable with me that we can have a conversation. I can save them time from driving to the office and, bringing me their paperwork. I made it very easy. Yeah, other mortgage brokers, if travel's not important to them, well, then they're okay with seeing clients in the office and setting up all of their meetings face to face all day. So, when I mentioned I was talking to a doctor the other day, I know a lot of doctors that have built practices where they have other doctors underneath them and they're the head of the practice. And then I know certain doctors where they want to see the patients every day, right? So it's trying to figure out what you want to do with your life. And then once you know that, then you can say, okay, well, if I have to see clients, how do I want to create that process? Is it in person? Is it, online? How is that going to be? So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, that did. Definitely, you kind of had that begin with that end in mind mentality there, and definitely, I want to put a little pin in that real quick. I do want to come back to that, but I've got to ask the first question that I always try to get to asking right away is, how did you get over the fear of public speaking?
Okay, so it's kind of interesting, and this is why I think everything kind of happened to me for a reason, because as I was doing everything, I didn't realize at the time what I was actually doing. And I don't know if that makes sense, but we ended up moving from Miami back to Southwest Florida. And I said, okay, I'm starting over. I was selling real estate. Now I'm going back into the mortgage industry. So how am I going to get people that don't know me and I don't know them, because I failed to keep my database, to, do business with me? So I said, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create real estate classes on how to sell real estate, business planning, lead generation, how to cold call expired listings, for sale by owners, all of the real estate investing, which I still do. All of these different classes, and I'm going to go to the real estate brokers and say, hey, I have these classes on how to teach your real estate agents how to grow and scale their business and, make more money. I can help them with their listing presentations. And then in return, my thought process was, well, I'll get the mortgage business. And it actually worked. But what happened was I now had to get up and speak in front of 30, 40 people, and at some point some of my classes are CE, continuing ed approved. Some of them are 3 to 4 hours, so that's a long time that I have to be standing in front of people. So in the beginning I was freaking out, and I had my classes together, and I had my mom, my dad, my kids, and my husband sit on the couch, and I stood up there and I taught the class to them. And I just started doing that, standing up there and teaching, even if it was like nobody but my dog. I would stand there and teach the class before I got more comfortable. I also went to a couple Toastmasters thinking, I'm going to get involved in that, which I think it could be amazing. I never really, went too deep with it. It's just practice. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's not fun. And I've been doing it well, I take that back. It is a lot of fun. I actually absolutely love it. But I still have that fear before I start, and then I'm fine. Once I'm up there and I get going, I'm fine.
Hmm. So basically, getting that practice in helps you get over most of that fear, but not the whole thing. But then just getting into the speech is where that fear just kind of vanishes as you get into it.
Yeah.
So,
One tip of that, you have to find what works for you. Um,
mhm.
I always use a PowerPoint. I've had a couple of speaking gigs, if you want to call it that, where I've spoke for the Women's Council of Realtors or the Board of Realtors. They've asked me to do like a little motivational speech, and I'm like with a podium and a microphone and no PowerPoint at all. And I can tell you that's a lot harder than having a PowerPoint and being up there, because that kind of like, jogs your memory of what you're wanting
Mhm.
to say. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, having the PowerPoint definitely gives you that skeleton, that outline, some reference points for you to continue to go after, look after and see, okay, here's the next reference. I could talk about that now. It's your next talking point. It was blinking. My mind was going blank there for a second, but it gives you your talking points versus trying to come up and have everything memorized or have the talking points memorized completely. It definitely gives you that structure there. So I can definitely see that. So you said you'd speak for 3 to 4 hours, and starting with your family, I feel like those are like the most critical people on you. And they're going to like nitpick these little things because they know you, they know all your little quirks, your faults, if you will, although they normally wouldn't point them out. But when you're asking for it, then I think that's as a husband, I may go a little overboard with that. My wife just giving her a hard time, like, okay, you want me to critique you here? I'm going to critique you. And it's just like all these things that don't even matter. But I'd probably take advantage of that as a husband. So how was that with the family critiquing you on your getting prepared to speak to these realtors?
Well, what was interesting was they actually were looking at me like I had 5 million heads, and they were like, what are you doing? This is not going to work. Like I
Hmm.
swear, they were telling me that my idea was like not going to work. And I was like, no, this is going to work. Like, real estate agents, they need my help. I've been doing this. I was in one-on-one coaching with Mike Ferry for, 10 years or 8 years or however long. I
Hmm.
have all of the tools to help these people. So not only were they critiquing me on my presentation, they were looking at me like I was crazy with my idea of like, they're like, why are you doing this? Because it was a lot of work. I mean, I had to create these classes and stuff like that, but it 100% paid off. And it actually paid off so much more because it helped me discover my real passion, which is
Hmm.
speaking, which is helping, which is teaching. I was scared in the beginning, but I realized I actually have a knack for it and I love it. It's like one of those, like, I don't know, just gets me excited. So
Yeah, yeah, and even with that, I know with real estate, you might be a little bit more local to your area, but you get to fulfill part of that mission, that vision that you had of being able to travel, because you may get to go to another state and present to another real estate group. There's obviously real estate groups in every single city, every nook and cranny. You're going to find some kind of realtor somewhere, and you can be able to go present to them. So it kind of goes with that. So I do want to take a step back to the beginning when you started deciding, where do I want to go? How do I want to build out this dream life? Can you break that down for us a little bit more? I mean, that's definitely interesting. I think a lot of people, and myself included, so I'm asking a little selfishly, like, I want to be able to create a life where I can go travel or go spend time with family and not be stuck at the house or stuck at going into a building every single day or Monday through Friday. So how did you go about really creating that once you had the vision and the end goal in mind?
So I feel like it's like an evolution, like it's constantly evolving. When I first moved to Florida, I was in mortgage and I was in the day-to-day grind, and I wasn't
Hmm.
even thinking anything else. Although the Rich Dad Poor Dad had me seeing, okay, I can get real estate investments and make passive income, and I can
Hmm.
actually live off of passive income and do whatever I want whenever I want, which is really what I want to do in life. Um, so when we ended up moving from Tampa to Southwest Florida, my husband and I, we were 23, I think. And he said, let's open a mortgage company. I had the license for both. Let's open a mortgage and real estate company. And I was scared because I had my salary job. I didn't want us both being on straight commission. We were just buying a house. We were not even married yet. And I did it, but I knowing, oh, I can go back to my job, if I need to. So that was the first kind of step. And then since then, when I was in real estate, I'm like, I'm still going to travel. I don't care. But what I hated was that if I traveled, it was travel or make money. It wasn't both. Because if I wanted to travel, my job was cold calling expireds for sale by owners. I had to be on the phone 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I hated being in that rat race. So it was the point of, okay, I can travel and just be like, well, I'm not going to make any money for a couple of months, or not travel, but I chose travel. So then after I started thinking, well, you know what? I want to be able to do both. How can I make money and travel at the same time? And so then it got to the point where, okay, I figured that out. And it's all through hiring people. It's all through systems. It's all through processes. It's all through making yourself available like we are right now, but not having to be that in person, having to meet people. And I feel like I'm doing it with the mortgage, but I can teach other people, whether it's real estate or it doesn't matter what profession, how to go about doing that. It's just figuring out where you fit in on your team, because you can't do it alone, right? Unless you're in some like marketing agency and all you do is like generate leads for people. If you have a big business, you have to have a team, and it's all about the team behind you.
Okay, so you mainly focus with business owners then, or is that just anybody as far as the coaching goes?
Well, with the coaching, I mean, I'm more of like mentoring right now other people, but it just depends on where you are in your business and how you have your business. And then also if you want to be able, so I'm talking about travel, and I know I can tell you love to travel too,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
that
yeah.
might not be everybody's thing, right? Somebody else
hmm
might have something else that they want to do, and they absolutely hate traveling because they have a fear of flying. So it could be something else, but the whole point is figuring out what you want to do in life and then creating your business or your job to allow you to actually be able to do that.
Mm. Okay, yeah. So going back to exactly what we talked about, really figuring out what that end goal is in mind, and so you help people with the figuring out what the end goal is, and then figuring out the vehicle that they can use in order to get themselves there. Because yeah, you're right. I mean, if you're in real estate, you're kind of having to be there in the market, or yeah, go famish or feast or famine there.
Right.
But yeah, because it's either make money or go travel, for in the case for you, and it just depends on the person for sure what that looks like. So definitely doing the mortgage stuff was a step in the right direction, and doing the coaching and everything. So there's definitely things, and obviously just like we're doing this podcast virtually, we're not in person. You can do the coaching virtually. So I like that. That's definitely, I got my gears spinning right now, figuring ways that I can do that to be able to create more time back in my life and everything with the coaching. And some of that for me would be like creating virtual training. So I pre-record a video, and here's a video, and I can start selling that, kind of creating that passive income, similar to how you did that with real estate itself, which that's another goal for me down the road, is to get into real estate as well, to be able to do that. But kind of after the capital there, but kind of going off on a tangent there. But I do want to get us back on track here and talk about go back to how, okay, so you worked with your family, getting better at speaking in front of them to be able to prepare yourself to give these presentations to realtors. So how do you keep their attention? I mean, if you're talking about 3-4 hours for continuing education, and I've been involved in continuing education, and it's boring. It's kind of like a lot of it you already know. You're kind of having to just go, or if maybe you don't know it, but you're having to go because, hey, my certification, my license tells me I have to go to this continuing education. So I'm going just to go. So how do you keep these people's attention whenever they're pretty much just there just to check a box?
So I can tell you that after every single class, I give a survey because I actually want good feedback, right? I want to
Mhm.
know, what did you like? What didn't you like? Is there anything I should have included that you thought, all of that stuff. I have never gotten, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just saying, I have never gotten any negative feedback. In fact, in my last class, somebody came up to me and said, I've been to a lot of presentations, not CE, just in general. And this was
Mhm.
one of the best ones I've been to. So what I do is, and I'm going to tell you actually exactly what I do. So I don't know if this is helpful or not, but because I have a PowerPoint, so I do two things. First of all, I always tell stories. And I have a lot of stories to tell because I've been through life, like up, down, like I have a lot of stories. And people want to hear story, like life stories. They want to be able to relate to you. And if you're teaching something to somebody or talking about something to somebody that's of interest to them or in that same industry, typically they've probably experienced something similar to what you're talking about, whether it's rejection or the way, people have talked to you on a sales call. And I'm not always telling positive, uplifting stories. It's just kind of like the real crap that happens
Mhm.
in life. So number one is tell stories. Number two is be real. Like, don't come off like you are just miss know it. I'm open to people. And so I'm always like, if anybody has any other suggestions, but you have to be careful opening it up to the floor as well,
Mm.
because then you get so many people talking and it's hard to kind of get them all back together to being like, okay, stop talking now. We need to continue. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
the other thing is when I have the PowerPoint presentation, I mentally go over that the night before. I mentally go over that morning, and I could have given the same presentation or speech, the day before, but I still go back and tweak it or fine tune it a little bit. And then
Mhm.
I print the PowerPoint because I'm like old school. And and then I write on my PowerPoint where my little stories are going to be. So I know in my mind, okay, after this PowerPoint, this is when I'm going to tell the story about this. And then I'm also off the cuff a lot, but I do kind of try and have it all planned.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So a lot planned, but then also off the cuff. I think it's always a good way to go into a presentation. Obviously, you want to be prepared, but if it's so planned out, that it's like right down to every slide, every bullet, you know exactly what you're going to do. That comes off as inauthentic. So being off the cuff definitely helps a lot with keeping that engagement. And then, yeah, stories as well. Stories are always a great thing. So definitely some great stuff you talked about. I do want to ask the question you mentioned about try and open up a little bit, but not too much, because otherwise the audience will just kind of take over and you're going to get lost and not be able to finish. So how do you navigate that? How do you keep the audience under control?
So it can be difficult, and I'm hard. I'm one of those people that if someone is talking to me about something and they're like the ramblers, they go on and on and on. I don't know how to get them to stop. Sometimes I'll just put the phone down and put the mute button on, because I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. So it is more difficult for me than it could be for somebody else that might be a lot more assertive.
Hmm.
But I try to two things. I know that can happen because it's happened to me, and it is difficult to get people back, especially if one has one idea and this one and that one, and they're all kind of talking about, then it's like, okay, we need to get back to what so I try to limit the amount of time I will open it up to everybody. And then I will just say, if it's kind of going back and forth, I'll just say, all right, everybody. And then I'll like make a joke or,
Mm.
something like that to get everybody back onto, where I'm at. or
Okay, yeah.
then go in on somebody, okay, yeah, you're right, I agree with you, and then I'm thinking, and then kind of talk more about what they're saying, but talk at a louder voice, just
Mhm.
so that it can get the attention back onto me.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You're kind of breaking up with a joke that way. It's not you don't come off as rude, even though you shouldn't be rude because you're the one giving the training and you're trying to get everybody back on track. But still, that's yeah, definitely a great way to bring them back in, kind of that joke, rather than just disrupt, interrupting and being like, "All right, we're getting back." Just kind of create a joke out of that, keep that atmosphere lively. So then on the PowerPoints themselves, like how do you structure those PowerPoints? Or just like for me, what I like to do, I mean, I love memes. I always like to have corny jokes and stuff. So I'll throw memes a lot of times if I can find a good one that relates with what I'm talking about in the PowerPoint, if I am doing a PowerPoint. So is there anything you do like that? Or is it just pretty much straight bullet points and some nice colors and everything?
So I need to do the memes and make it look a little bit better than what it is. I mean, the PowerPoint is for them. And people take pictures of
Mhm.
PowerPoints, you know? So I have people all the time literally taking pictures of my slides, and I'm okay with it. I mean, I don't know. Some people might not be okay. I don't know. For me, I don't care, because I'm there to, like, if I'm giving a speech, I want them to learn. I want them to,
Yeah.
they're there to see me. They're there. I want them to walk away with, like, wow, that was amazing. And if it wasn't amazing, I want to know why, so I can better myself. But I don't have any memes. It's basically just like PowerPoint, blah, 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 good colors, bullet points. And then my talking kind of fills in the blanks. So
Mhm.
that's where everything is not on the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint is for them with the heading of what is important. And it allows me to kind of know what I'm talking about, but
Mhm.
I fill in all of the blanks there. I'm not reading the PowerPoint or anything. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, I see it. It's funny, when I was at Apex Live, I noticed every speaker had a PowerPoint, only it was on the floor. You could
Mhm.
see they were looking at the floor, and there was PowerPoints up there. It wasn't in front of them, but I'm sure it was the same as like what I do, which is just to kind of keep you back on track. And I'm not saying
Mhm.
every single one, but the ones that I watched, because when you want to be better at speaking, you watch what other people are doing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And why I like using the memes is just because it kind of brings that humor in there. It makes it relatable because yeah, you can have bullet points across and there's nothing wrong with that, but I like to throw the memes in there to make it more relatable, something for them to remember. Like I've done a couple of presentations now on how to get better at speaking on camera, helping people with public speaking, but more so for videos for social media. And one thing I go in there, I'm like, hey, this training is to help you get more confidence. So you're going to go from this guy that looks like, and he's kind of like, oh man, he's just so nervous looking at the camera. So this guy's like, hey, what's going on? Like, and he's just like super confident. And so I use that to show the difference. So like what I hope my training will do is to help you with the tools I'm going to teach you, go from being this person that's unconfident, kind of shy on camera, to being super confident and almost to a point of being cocky, but really just putting yourself out there to be able to speak whatever your message is there on camera. And so but using that, and then the stories, like I think that's the best way for people to be able to remember you and remember what it is that you talked about, because that, and you use a lot of real world situations that have happened to you and probably other people as well, if they're not all stories of you and your personal situations, but it helps people be able to relate to the subject matter that you're trying to talk about. So stories are super important.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I love the meme, by the way. I'm gonna add
Yeah.
them to my
There you
PowerPoint.
go. There you go. Yeah. If you can find them, I think it's always funny. Yeah. I think everybody loves a meme. So you're always going to capture everybody's attention with that, and always gets them like at least looking, paying attention to something
Yeah.
if they're
And
not
then,
paying attention to you.
exactly. And then the other thing with the stories, with what's funny is that I have a lot of the same people that come to my classes and stuff like that, and I tell the same stories. So
Hmm.
I was watching Ed Milet actually yesterday, and I'm like, I've heard his dad's story, the story about his dad,
Hmm.
probably like 30 times, but it never gets old, right? So the more you tell the story, not, because sometimes it's like, I feel to myself, well, these people have already heard this story, right? So, but some people in the room haven't, but the ones that, so I will say, a lot of you have already heard my story, but if you haven't, then da da da. But what I realized in listening to Ed Milet speak so many times is that I actually really like him. Same with Mel Robbins, right? They say a lot of the same stuff, but the more you hear it, the more you feel like you know them better. Like you know them more. You've heard that story. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I can
Yeah,
say
that's
like,
so true.
yeah, like telling, if you're giving a speech, you don't always have to reinvent your speech every single time unless it's the same audience expecting something different. But my classes that people have come to 2, 3, or 4 or more times, they're the same content, right?
Yeah.
So that's another little thing. The more you tell your stories, the better you get at telling them, and you don't have to change up your stories. We can
Yeah,
all
for sure.
have so many stories. So
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And actually have a 2-story situation at 10X GrowthCon 3. I went to that actually in Miami. Was that 2018? Something like that. I think so. Well, anyways, so I went to that and I had went to 10X GrowthCon 2 and I saw Russell Brunson there. And he literally did the same exact speech. The only thing he added, which was annoying to me, but thinking on it, if I understand, but if he went and he had like 10 times the amount of people coming up to do testimonials on ClickFunnels, I'm like, okay, we get it. ClickFunnels works. Yeah, great. Another testimonial, but he's trying to make a sale. So clearly that's working. But his speech, and I don't know if the PowerPoint was literally the same, but like the whole structure, I remember it was pretty much verbatim. And I'm like, are you serious? Are you really doing the same speech? And it's like literally the same audience pretty much, because most of them probably went to 10X GrowthCon 2 and they went to 10X GrowthCon 3. But then I got thinking about it. I was like, you know what? Even though he's doing that same speech, clearly he's getting the result he wants, which is selling his program, which is selling ClickFunnels. So why change it up completely? I still think he should probably change a little bit, but it's working. So why change it? But then the other side at 10X GrowthCon 3, Jesse, I can't even think his last name right now, but yeah, the Spanx lady, her husband, he was there and he spoke. And then I saw him at Arte Syndicate event probably 6 months later, and he had the same speech, but he changed it up just a little bit. And I admired that. But then I also got thinking about that too. Like Jesse Itzler is his name. But I got thinking about that as well, that he's on the road speaking all the time. So he doesn't necessarily have an opportunity to completely revamp his speech and change it up because he's always on the road speaking. So I'm like, okay, I can see why these speakers, Russell Brunson not changing up because it works. He's making sales. And then Jesse Itzler not changing up because he's always on the road. So I say all of that to say, as you get into speaking more, you don't necessarily need to completely change up the whole script, because then you've got to go back through and practice again. And how are you going to get better and impact your audience more? So don't worry so much about being fresh and new every single time. Just go share that same message, share that message, because what is it, like 6 or 7 times people have to hear the same message before it clicks? I mean, I don't know.
well, not
Sometimes
only that,
guys,
like the way you portray your message. So you can have this amazing message, but if you don't portray it the right way, it's not going to be received the right way or the way you meant it, right? So the more you give the same message or the same speech or whatever, 2 things happens. Number 1, you get better at the way you're giving that message. And then number 2, half the time people hear what they want to hear when they're ready to hear it. It's like that old saying, the student is ready. When the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? I had a mortgage coach and she told me the same thing over and over and over for months. And I'm just like, then one day I came up with an epiphany, which is the exact same thing she's been telling me for she's like, I told you. I've been telling you this for like 6 months. She's like, Dannielle, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so
Mhm.
you can talk until you're blue in the face to an entire crowd, and you can say the same exact message over and over and over. But if the person receiving that message is not ready to receive what you're saying, it's in one ear and out the other, but maybe they picked up little other bits and pieces of your message. So it's okay to say the same thing because your message is your message. It
Yeah.
shouldn't really change. You can tweak it a little bit, but just saying the same thing, people, if even though they hear it, they're going to hear it differently every time, you
Yeah,
know?
you're exactly right. And I think guys, I tell my wife all the time, like, look, sometimes you just gotta hit me over the head by a 2x4. I'm not gonna pick up on it. So you gotta like literally tell me and hit me in the head so I can
What do you
understand.
want me to do?
Right, right. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you feel like it, no, tell me. What do you want me to do? Right.
Mhm.
But no, sometimes I think it's like 6 or 7 times people have to hear something before they really truly comprehend and understand it. So think about that as well. So even if you end up having some people that are the same people in your audience, or if you're posting videos on social media, you're sharing a message on social media, you have to continue to share that same message or talk about what it is that you do. Just because you say it once or twice, people aren't going to remember that you do it. So you have to continue to talk about that message, continue to talk about what you do, continue to share that same message on a stage that you speak on. And then people will start to get it. And then you'll even start probably believing it even more. And, oh, if I do this, I can tweak this a little bit and I can say it a little bit better and give more emphasis to those one thing that I
Right.
didn't and I wanted to and everything. So yeah, definitely
Exactly.
continue to repeat that message. So I have one more questions for you as far as, because you mentioned about you write down, you print out your PowerPoint old school, write down notes and everything. Are you looking down at those notes or is that just kind of there just in case you need it?
I don't ever look at the notes.
Okay.
And this is the PowerPoint way. Well, not even the
Mhm.
PowerPoint way, but what I do is I have them so that right before the speech, I mean, I literally will go back through and just kind of mentally get myself. There could be a room full of, I don't know, 40, 50 people, and I just will still be sitting there mentally going through. And I have them there so I can flip through to jog my memory before. And then the other thing is, I mean, if I'm in a class for 3 hours, they get a break. What's
Yeah.
actually awesome is I'll say normally it's like you're supposed to do like 10 minutes every hour or whatever. And I'll say, hey guys, we can take a break right now, but do you want to keep going? And then once I have a better spot to take a break, and almost everyone's like, oh, we don't need a break. So I've had people sit through a 2 hour class with no, class. I say class, but it's also like a speech for
Mhm.
2 hours and not need a break, just because I keep them engaged by telling real life stories, by telling jokes, by keeping it fresh because I know what my audience wants to hear,
Mhm.
and also engaging them a little bit into the entire thing. And then if you give speeches, and this is giving speeches in front of people that and have given speeches in front of before. I'm not talking about like just random people but I'll say, oh, Carolyn, remember, da, 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 or, kind of like bring random people if they were
Mhm.
in a class that I saw before. Mike, remember when I said blah, 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 to kind of like pull people into it and make them feel like they're, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, those are all great things. Yeah. Telling those stories, get them related, make some jokes to keep the humor in there, keep the engagement, keep them entertained. And yeah, calling out their name and hey, you remember this, and to help spark their memory and then help them remember the point that you're about to talk about as well. So ooh, lots of great things. I appreciate all this and I'm definitely enjoying this podcast. But I do want to ask one last question to you, and it sounds like you're on that path already, but I'll go ahead and ask it anyways. If you could only share one message for the rest of your life, what would that message be?
So it would be, do not live a life by default, live a life by design. Go and travel, buy the shoes, drink the wine, eat the cake, whatever makes you happy, because literally we get one life. That's it. And the last thing we want to do is be, 60, 70, whatever years old and realize, crap, I should have, I wish I did this. I wish I did that. So even if you want to do something and it doesn't seem possible because you think you don't have the money, or you think you don't have the time, or you think you don't have the resources or whatever, just do it. As long as you're not hurting anybody else and you're not going to die, and as long as you're not going to die, just do it because it's all going to be okay.
Hmm. Good. And I love that message. And you're definitely on that path already. And I see you post on social media a lot about that and a lot what's going on, definitely engaging your social media audience and everything. So I love it. But Dannielle, I appreciate you coming on. For those of you that are watching this live or listening to this podcast, now we're going to go over to the Speaking Sessions Lounge and answer the questions for those that are in the group that are watching this live right now. So if you want to be a part of that and be able to ask questions directly to Dannielle while I have her hostage, while she's on the podcast with me, you can definitely join the group and be able to ask those questions to every one of my guests going forward here in the future. But Dannielle, appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. It was fun.